Wife being shady in her new job with her boss. Hello, first time posting here and it's going to be long. So please, I appreciate your patience and some advice because I feel horrible. Me, 35M, and my wife, 37F, have known each other and been married for a total of 17 years, basically college sweethearts, and I love her to death. We have two amazing young kids and live the life we have always wanted. We travel. We just bought a new home recently and all the good stuff. We have had our up and downs like any relationship, but nothing to worry about. Also, I need to add that we are both in great shape, but in her case, she is in extra great shape and is very attractive woman, which is good and bad at the same time. We both work. I have a good 8 to 5 paying job in corporate, and she had an average job that was not corporate that she was not happy but stayed in order to pay the bills and have some extra money, but her dream was always to work in a big corporation. A big opportunity came up for her in a medium-sized manufacturing company on a HR, high-paying position, basically doubling her income and almost matching mine with all the benefits and all. So she felt prepared for it and applied. It was a long month and a half wait time to get to the final candidates, and then she received the call that she was selected in her dream position. She was thrilled and happy beyond anyone could imagine. The same person that interviewed her and gave her the job is her direct manager, a 52-year-old married man. He even told her that a lot of women applied for it, but I selected you, and of course my wife was very grateful for the opportunity, and my wife really likes him as a boss and always comes home talking non-stop of all the things she learned from him, and that he is very funny and is always making jokes with her and blah blah blah. Just what I wanted to hear right after a long day of work. Then I noticed that some things started to change in the 3 weeks she has been hired. She would get up super early to get her makeup on and do her hair and take more care of her appearance. She didn't do it in her old job because there wasn't a need to it, since she worked with kids, so I understand it. Also, her job schedule is from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., so she would leave home at 6 a.m. to get there at 6:30 a.m. to get there more early, and she arrives home usually at 6:30 p.m. We live 30 minutes away from her work. That means she is leaving her workplace at 6 p.m., but also I kind of understand it because she wants to be very punctual and give good impressions. Also, she has 1 hour lunch time for herself that we in the past used to call each other and spent some time, but she told me that she is busy because her manager is training her during lunchtime, and other days she is just learning by herself and all that, and she won't be available as much, so we may do a quick 10-minute talk, and that's it. I also understood that for these past 3 weeks. Fast forward to Monday of this week, we had agreed to leave work at our normal time 5 p.m. because we had some errands to do. She said yes, and that she will be home at 5:30 p.m. It's around 5:35 p.m., and she calls me to let me know that she is still in the office and that she would not make it on time and hang up. But it sounded like she was driving because there was too much background noise, and I know when she is calling me from the car. So I did check her location on the car GPS, and she was not in the company parking lot. She was in a nearby park like 3 minutes driving time that had walking trails and a small lake, so that was totally strange for me. Also, once I know her location, I texted her telling to call me back and got no reply. Then I called her 2 times and no answer. So I also check our cell phone data plan since we have a family plan and can see all the call logs and see her boss phone number dialed 2 times. 1 call it just as she was leaving her office, let's say at 5:20 for a minute, and another call at 6 p.m. that lasted for 20 minutes. Then she proceeds to call me back at 6:20 p.m., telling me that she is leaving her office at that exact moment. Of course, I didn't believe her. I confronted her as soon as she got home, and she told me that she seemed very remorseful, like she knew she did something wrong, but kept telling me that she was just working overtime and solving some issues in the office, but that she never left until 6:20 p.m., and she told me that her boss did not call her for 20 minutes. They didn't even talk on the phone. That was the first red flag. On Tuesday, she was very communicative and keep texting me and calling me like nothing happened, and she even left early at work and it was a normal day. The second red flag was yesterday. Everything was good until the time to leave the company. She texted me at 5 p.m. telling me that she will leave in exactly 10 minutes because she is receiving a new computer and they are setting it up. I replied, okay. 20 minutes pass by and have no answer from her, so I text her and tell her if she already got out. It's already 5:30 p.m., but still no answer. So I call her 1 time and she doesn't pick up. So again, I checked the car GPS location and shows that she is parked in a nearby parking lot gym like 8-minute drive from her office, and checked the call logs again, and her boss phone number also appeared 2 times just like last time at that same time around 5:20 p.m. So I called her again like 3 times because I was pissed, and she picked up telling me that she is just leaving her office. I told her, bullshit, you're lying, and you better come with the truth once you get home. Immediately after our call, she calls her boss, and they speak for about 5 minutes because I can see all the calls made from her. Once she gets home, she tries to tell me that she was working. She was at the office all the time, and that she had a rough day and was being defensive toward me, and said to me that I was imagining things and being paranoid with her. I just said, "Are you done?" Then I told her, "I know you were at a nearby parking lot gym and not working in the office like you told me, and I also know that you boss is involved with you in this shoddiness of yours, and am done with this shit." She went pale white, started begging me to stay, and to please listen to her side of the story. She told me that she had a problem with the managers and a super bad day, and she lost time working, and about the car parked at that parking lot gym is because her iPhone went crazy and her Apple CarPlay didn't want to put the GPS directions to get home, so she parked in the first spot that she found to reset it, a gym parking lot 8 minutes away. Then she started crying and said that she could possibly get fired because she is under a lot of pressure for being the new HR, and she is just doing her best at work and all that. I told her that I checked her GPS location and her call logs, and she went mad, telling me that I don't trust her and to not check her again and to stop imagining things in my head. Today she came home early than usual and was happy and invited me to go out at a restaurant and the nice things couples do on weekdays, and she kind of forgot whatever happened this past days. Like nothing happened in her head, and when I try to bring the subject she gets defensive and tells me to stop it, to trust her, that he has nothing going on with her boss and everything will be fine. She tells me that she wants to be with me and continues to make plans for the future for us, and all but is this type of shady attitude that I don't like and holds me back for now. And now to the next story, story 2. I left my husband and I feel terrible. I, 28F, created a Reddit account just to make this post because I have no one to vent to about this and I'm struggling. I left my husband, 29M, 2 days ago, and it's just really hard. We have known each other since high school and been together for almost 4 years. We have 1 kid together. Our relationship has always been very rocky. We bicker a lot. We've gotten into some pretty intense fights, but we got along okay most of the time, and we loved each other. He has a lot of mental health issues that have severely impacted our relationship, mostly anxiety. It started getting bad about 2 years ago and has just progressively gotten worse. He quit working 2 years ago because going to work made him anxious. That summer he went through 4 or 5 jobs and quit each one after just a day or two because of his anxiety. That was the first time I told him he needed to go to therapy. Since then, it's gotten to the point that he rarely leaves the house. I have to drive everywhere because he gets anxious a lot while driving. I have to go inside all stores or restaurants to get our stuff because there's too many people and he won't go in. I can't remember the last time we had a date. No going out to eat, no movies, no sporting events, no concerts, nothing. The last few that we did go to, we left early. Like 2 songs in early. We have had countless discussions and fights about him getting help. One time I paid for and planned a trip to Utah. We spent 2 days driving there. I drove, and only a day and a half actually in Utah before we left. I drove home because the elevation was giving him anxiety and he could not leave our Airbnb. I cried and begged him to get help. 2 months ago, we were supposed to get married. It was an elopement, so it was just for the 2 of us. I spent 8 months planning and about $5,000 between the venue, photographer, Airbnb, wedding attire, etc. The morning of our wedding, he says he can't do it because he's too anxious. I'm not sure I've ever cried so hard or been so hurt or so angry. The 4-hour drive back home, I told him how lonely I was always doing things on my own. How stressed I felt always being the one to have to do everything because he couldn't. How everything he couldn't do fell on me, and I couldn't take it anymore. I told him he absolutely had to get help, or we were done. He swore he would go to therapy. I was devastated and embarrassed. I asked him if we could not tell people he called off our wedding, and instead just say we did. I hired another photographer to get pictures done at a nearby park, so we'd have something to show people. He could barely even take those pictures. He wasn't in half of them, and we had to cut the session short. It's been 2 months since the day we were supposed to get married, and he has not been to therapy still. So I ended things. And I feel terrible. I feel like I broke apart a family. I feel like now I have to tell everyone I was never legally married. I feel bad for hurting him during a time where he's clearly not okay. But I can't continue to try to help him if he won't help himself. I spent 2 years begging him to get better. We had so many talks about the issues in the relationship. He says he's blindsided by the breakup. He says now he'll go to therapy. He says I'm making our son's life harder. He says I didn't take our marriage seriously. He was a stay-at-home dad for our son because he couldn't work. He only watched him 2 to 3 days a week. Family watched him the rest, and I feel like he really lacked on taking care of the house. But he says he doesn't think he did. And I feel like I'm messing up their relationship. I'm not going to sit here and say he never did anything for me. He did cook meals for us. He did fix things around the house or put stuff together for me. He helped clean at times, and he did help with our son. Although I will say I did the majority of things for our son, even with him being the sod. But he just never showed up for us. He didn't go to my birthday lunch. He didn't go to our son's first soccer practice, only had one so far. He canceled our wedding and then still didn't go to therapy. I think deep down I'm making the right decision. I'd hate to let this go on for 10 or 20 years and have to leave him then. But it still hurts and it sucks and it's hard. It's worse because he has nothing, no job, no car, no money, no supportive family. So I really feel like I'm putting him in a terrible position. I have offered to get him a car when I get my end-of-year bonus. And now one more story, story 3. Older married couple and wife does not want to live under same roof, so I want a divorce. I am 68 and my wife is 60. We have been married for 13 years and have been in love with each other for over 30 years. We both have been married once before. Once we married, we lived together as a family that consisted of my wife, stepdaughter, and myself for over 10 years. My stepdaughter got married and we all lived together for a year or so. We have lived in different states for over 2 years as my wife and her daughter and son-in-law moved out to find us a different place to live. We were in agreement to relocate to a different state, and I was going to move and relocate with them once I sold my business of 30-plus years. My stepdaughter and my wife rented for a year, then bought a house with a basement where my wife now lives. My wife and stepdaughter are extremely close and want to live together and see each other every day. The basement is my wife's house and is perfect for her and set up exactly as she likes it. I don't want her to give up her house with her daughter. I would never want to have them apart. I'm not young and know my time that is left here on earth is probably not long-term. My wife will be happy living there with her daughter once I die. I will be away regularly visiting my son and grandkids in another state. She will be in her house much of the time when I am away. She can stay in her house with her daughter on a weekly basis if she likes, but needs to live with me in our house. I recently sold my business and have retired and was looking forward to purchase a house within a few miles from my stepdaughter where me and my wife could live. When I asked my wife to be on the lookout for something that she thought would work for us, she told me she does not want to live under the same roof as me. She says she feels comfortable and safe where she lives. She says we argued at times, and she doesn't want to be living under the same roof. We had minimum stupid disagreements that I think every married couple has. My wife is very sensitive and says I could get loud when we are having a disagreement. I think she gets as loud as me but doesn't hear herself. I cannot be married to a woman that does not love me enough to want to live under the same roof. My wife does not want me to get a divorce as she says she loves me very much. I am worried about her because this is ripping her up and she is very upset. She has totally devastated me as I have been looking so forward to spending the rest of my life with her and making her happy and making many great memories together in our golden years. I love her very much and don't know how I will ever be happy without her. She says she wants both, to be married to me but don't live under the same roof. Am I wrong for feeling betrayed and not wanting to be married to a person that does not want to live under the same roof? Additional information after original post. I would like to thank everyone that has replied. I am old and not tech savvy. This is my first time to try something like this, and only did this as a last resort. I don't know how to type other than I use one finger, so it takes me a while to do this. I try to keep it short but realize by some of the replies that it's very hard to give people a good picture of what our 30 years of loving each other has been like and why she doesn't want to live under the same roof when I can't understand it. Based on some of the posts I received, I would like to make a few more statements with more information that may help people to be able to help me. My wife is not after my money. She has worked very hard her entire life and has her own money and can take care of herself. I provided for the family while we were living under the same roof, but she also could have. When we have a disagreement, there is no shouting or screaming or yelling, just interrupting each other and going on and on trying to prove our point on who is right and who hurt whose feelings first. When we settle down and talk about it, it's always something that was a minor misunderstanding that her feelings got hurt. But trying to stop the arguing while it's going never seems to work for either of us. She won't take a pause. I can tell her this is getting out of hand and let's stop and cool down, but she keeps going. We usually never come to an agreement and wind up mad at each other and not speaking very much for a day or so. We have gone to a marriage counselor several years ago together, but didn't really get anywhere with it. I have recently went to a female marriage counselor/therapist by myself a few weeks ago. I was told that we need to talk in person and try to stay together because we both love each other. My wife doesn't want to discuss in person us living under the same roof. She says we have discussed it several times, and that she told me she wanted her own place with her daughter. I agreed to that but didn't realize until a few weeks ago that she meant us not living under the same roof when I moved there. I thought she wanted a place with her daughter in addition to our place. I'm sure I am not an angel when we argue, but I honestly know I am clueless most of the time as to what I did or didn't do that hurt her feelings. My wife has had a rough life growing up as she has no relationship with her dad or her mother. She had not spoken with her mom for over 15 years because they got in a fight on the phone. Her mom recently passed away, and I had to tell her that she passed after receiving a call from the sheriff. That upset her very much, and she did not have a chance to tell her bye, and that she loved her or was able to try to fix their problems. Her dad was mentally and verbally abusive to her when she was a kid. I don't think this helps us when we get in an argument. We have no people we are seeing on the side and are very romantically crazy about each other. We are not young but have the same chemistry as when we first met. The last 15 years with my business has been very hard and stressful, especially since COVID and some floods we had in the last several years that flooded both my office and house. I know I have not always been cheerful or in the best mood at times, but never mad or upset at her. I guess the main thing for me is that if she feels I did something that upset her in the past, or she is concerned that we may get in arguments in the future, why want to stay married to me and get so upset at me because I don't want to be married to a person that doesn't want to live under the same roof as me? I don't want a divorce and don't want to not be with her. The main thing that got me through the last couple years was thinking of how good a life we would have when I moved there with her. But now I know I will not be happy knowing that she does not love me enough to live under the same roof.